get off the sidelines. Time to get in the game.
Aloha and welcome back to the Triple Play Performance Podcast. This is Dr. Mike, and you are listening to episode 68, where we are going to talk about the great vaccine debate. Now, let's just jump right in. I posted out on Instagram a few weeks ago. Depends upon when you're listening to this episode. I posted out something about the great vaccine mandate and the great vaccine debate. And this has been an ongoing, I guess, dialogue. And there's two sides to it, right? Well, there's two major sides. There's multiple sides to this. And there's the common thing that I see when people talk about this is that there are the pro-vaccinators and then there's the anti-vaxxers. And I get both sides. You know, as a healthcare practitioner, I get both sides of it. You know, I understand the heated debates that I've seen online. I've had heated debates personally with friends, with patients, with people online. And when you look behind it all, I can see why people care so much on either side. So you have the side of people that are pro-vaccines and they're, 100% passionate about health. And then you look at what people would consider anti-vaccinations, and they're also 100% about health, and they care a lot. Both sides care a lot. And I posted something about the whole idea behind the mandate because of what we're seeing with the measles and how there's a lot more spreading than we've seen in a long time. And I'm not going to downplay that. There's a lot more than previous years if you just look at the statistics. And when I saw that New York and I think other places have basically come out with a mandate saying that everybody needs to get the MMR vaccine, that really sparked something for me. And again, this is just my personal opinion, but it sparked something for me, and it's not necessarily just to do with the vaccines, because there are some shady issues surrounding vaccinations, and there are some legitimate scientific claims, scientific findings of helping the body to produce some type of immunological response. Now, whenever I see a mandate, I always get weary about that. And the only reason why I'm weary about that is because we're breaking a certain biological law called biochemical individuality. It's like coming out and saying every single person needs to partake in a diet, a specific type of diet, because obesity is running rampant. And that's, if you look at it, obesity is a true epidemic. And hey, look, the government tried to come out with a recommendation, guidelines, and all these things, and just short of being almost like a mandate, and that hasn't gone too well. When we've seen the food guide pyramid and all that kind of stuff. But it's not a one-to-one relation. But that's what I'm saying is that these mandates, what it does is it's almost like a slippery slope. And if you go back into the podcast archives, I did an interview with one of my classmates from chiropractic school, Dr. Tyson Perez, and we talked about SB 277 that was passed years ago in California. And here we have in New York them mandating vaccinations. And I understand, don't be DMing me and with all this hatred and stuff like that, I understand why the mandate is there. But also, I want you to think about, if you're one that stands behind the mandate, I want you to also think about the ramifications behind that. You know, i- you can't deal in absolutes, and that's the problem that we face in healthcare, is that we try to create this blanket that will treat people right. You go into your physician's office, and there's always this cookie cutter approach, and it doesn't work out right. It never works out well because we're neglecting the main fact of biochemical individuality. I'm not going to get into the discussion about, well, does vaccines cause autisms and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not a firm believer that it does, because there are other factors. You can never use that type of logic saying all vaccines cause autism, because I've dealt with patients who have children that have autism that never received vaccines. So we can never say that that was the only cause. There are other extraneous factors that lie into this. Now, if you look at vaccines, the majority of the vaccines that people are receiving, do they have some questionable ingredients? Yeah, they do. Are there other ways that we can induce some type of immune response? Yes, there are. And a lot of that actually doesn't make it on the market. I've been in discussions with people that tell me about, well, there are a subset that of children that cannot receive vaccines, and I know a lot of them, and I've worked with a lot of them. And the mandate thinking is, well, we need to vaccinate more people to create, this herd immunity, to protect those that can't receive the vaccine. And I understand that from a theoretical standpoint, but from a practical, and if we dive into the science, I'm not convinced. I'm definitely not convinced about mandating this blanket approach. I mean, like I said, I may be wrong. I may be wrong in all of this, but from what I've seen, from my small sample size, from what I've seen in the office of just the people that I've worked with, uh, it doesn't turn out well. It just doesn't turn out well. Now, we got to be looking at other ways, and that's the whole issue that I have here is, what why are we not thinking, in this day and age, why are we not thinking or putting out things that wouldn't cause a reaction? And the only reason why I say that is because I've seen the reactions that have happened, with patients. Now, sure, are there those that doesn't have a reaction? Absolutely. But that, in again, proves my point of biochemical individuality. You can give two children the exact same shot, and they're going to react totally different. And how they react, we don't know. That's the other issue is, are we playing Russian roulette with these children? And, and when we look at vaccine companies, they're protected by law. You cannot sue them for vaccine injuries, and other things too. Like, there's a huge fund set aside, like billions of dollars for vaccine injuries. And so that also fuels my thought process of, well, is there a better way? Are we really helping, you know, or are we harming? I don't know. And that's the problem that I see that we face with this whole mandate, is what are the long-term ramifications? Now, does the study show that a vaccine creates some type of immunological response. Yeah, I mean, I look into it and I say, hey, yeah, I've read the studies. But also, here's the other thing that comes up is some of the studies were kind of fudged. There's some researchers that worked for vaccine companies that have come out and say, hey, you know what? Some of the research that we put out there stating the efficacy of these vaccines, we weren't, these numbers were kind of fudged. So now, for me as a practitioner, what do I believe? Huh. I believe what is going on with the patient. So I've seen, I mean, the numbers kind of stack up there. I've seen a lot more um, patients that were injured by vaccines. And I'm not saying that, when I talk about injury, I'm not saying, they went from normal to being neurologically compromised. But I've seen a lot of issues. I've seen seizures. I've seen breakouts and rashes. I've seen long term digestive issues. I've seen um, kids have, other types of issues that you wouldn't necessarily uh, attribute on a one to one basis as it coming from a vaccine injury. But when we look at the overall picture, could it have been a contributing factor? Absolutely. Absolutely. So w- the reason why I'm so adamant about being against a mandate is that we don't know what we're doing here. We think we know exactly what we're doing here, but one, the research doesn't add up, and two, we don't know the long-term ramifications. That's my problem here. Now, we face another problem of, okay, well, with these types of outbreaks, what is it doing towards the ones that are compromised? I mean, I wish I had an answer for that, but we don't. I don't have an answer saying, yeah, we absolutely need to do this. Now, there are people that are totally against all vaccinations. And I get it. I understand. You look at the ingredient list, you look at the type of reactions. Yeah, I've seen it firsthand. I've also seen, I've seen firsthand people be affected by these infectious diseases, and I've seen the ramifications of that as well. I've seen parents who chose not to vaccinate their children, and their children ended up having some type of infection from these infectious diseases and have issues. You know, I wish there was a black and white answer. I wish there were. Unfortunately, this is a discussion, an argument that doesn't have one of those because of the fact of biochemical individuality. So I don't know what the answer is to all of this, but I do know that, and here's my belief is, I don't believe that people should just be jumping on a bandwagon because they saw a post on Instagram or they saw a YouTube video or they read something somewhere from, some celebrity or whatever. I don't believe in that approach. I believe, you working with a healthcare practitioner that will dive in and look at the biochemical individuality. I mean, there's so many things that are out there now that would be able to tell you, hey, maybe you would be susceptible towards a reaction. There are genetic tests that can show you a propensity. You know, there are delayed schedules. There are modified schedules. You look back in, the 70s, early 80s, the schedule from the CDC for vaccinations was totally different than what we see currently. And hey, we've seen a huge increase in the amount of vaccines that children are getting. that's become a big issue and a big problem, and another reason why a lot of people are waving, the red flag here and saying we have a problem. So that's a valid issue that we got to look at. um I mean, some people dive down the road of conspiracy theories talking about, all, a new world order and all that kind of stuff. uh, I I I like to entertain those because it's kind of fun and entertaining, but at the same time, I don't think that there's a deep agenda. Some people may believe that. I don't think so. I do think that there are people that turn a blind eye towards certain things. Like, hey, let's just give every single child this set because that's what was sent by the CDC. I don't believe in that. I also don't believe in just, hey, I'm never going to give my kids vaccines just because, um, I read a blog post. Now, I do believe in personal preference. I do believe in religious freedom. And I do believe strongly in medical freedom. And that's the whole reason why I'm totally against having a mandate, is because it takes away your medical freedom. Now, I don't know what this will do down the line to take away that medical freedom, right? Because I've seen a lot of medical freedoms being taken away, of people not wanting to partake in a certain procedure for a specific health issue, and, you know, facing the ramifications of that, legal ramifications. So I don't want our country, I don't want our world going down that route where it, we see an outbreak, or we see certain things going down the line, because I've heard, ridiculous things coming up that people were talking about, like mandating every single child on some type of cholesterol medication because cholesterol counts are rising. I don't want our country to go down that route. One, because of, like I said, biochemical individuality, but two, it takes away the physician's right to practice medicine. And I think that if a physician is told what to do, it totally negates everything that they've learned. It totally negates their ability to think in practice. It totally negates their decision making and their ability to practice medicine. It's like they go to work and, they're basically just a robot. And I know that there's a lot of physicians out there that look at what's being said, in the media, and they're shaking their heads. I know that there's a lot. When I saw this come out, I was shaking my head because because of all the things that I talked about in this episode. And so this episode was basically just me voicing my opinion about this whole situation, because I put out I put out that post a couple weeks ago. It got a lot of dialogue, and it drummed up a lot of dialogue for and against. And when I step back and I look at it, um, I do smile because people are concerned. People are concerned about their health on both sides, and I recognize that. Like I said, um, but I don't know if the route that we're going in this way is the route, because, gosh, from all the things that I read, um, and again, who knows if this information is 100% accurate, because who knows, like I said, I don't know if I can trust medical studies, a lot of it, because you gotta look at who's backing it. And we got to do a better job, guys, and so I trust um, what's going on for each patient's body. So the takeaway from all of this is to look at every single case, and work with a practitioner that's forward thinking rather than just cookie cutter thinking. You can't just dive into it and say, well, my baby's 18 months and therefore I'm gonna get these shots because my doc told me to. We gotta think more, guys, because like I said, biochemical individuality plays a huge role in all of this. And gosh, I hate to see and I hate to be getting all of these messages, and I've seen too many families being torn apart because they just followed blindly. Both the patient and the physician being just following blindly, um, without looking at the patient first. So that's the whole takeaway I want you guys to think about from this episode is think from an individual perspective, and then also, look at the idea of a mandate and ask yourself, does that seem like a smart thing to do? And if you have issues with the mandate, speak out to your representatives. That's what they're there for, is to represent you. Hopefully, right? Uh, but you know, this is one of those subjects that there is no definitive answer, right? There is no definitive answer. If you're arguing on one side or another, uh, I hate to say it, but you're right and you're wrong at the same time, because there is no answer to it. So you gotta come into this conversation with an open mind of being able to recognize both sides and their points, because both sides make very, very valid and truthful points. Now there are some that that lie on the fringes that say, hey, you know what, vaccines absolutely cause no damage whatsoever. Yeah, no, that's not a correct statement. And then there's those that lie on the exact polar opposite, saying every single vaccine causes damage and is the root cause of every single childhood disease. Not necessarily true as well. You can't deal in absolutes. You gotta look at every single individual, every single case as an individual perspective, and then make the decisions from there. So, guys, tough subject. Hopefully, you got something out of this episode. Leave me your comments. I want to hear what you guys think. Message me, or leave your comments on Instagram or on Facebook, and what are you guys' thoughts? I mean, I learn a lot. Believe it or not, I learn a lot from the comments that you guys leave me, the discussions that we start. I learn a lot from what you guys post out. So yeah, leave me the comments. Now, if this was your first time listening to me, kind of a tough subject to discuss. Hopefully, you got something out of it. I got a whole bunch more podcast episodes that you guys can listen through. Some great information. We're in what, episode 68 right now. So there's 67 other episodes that you guys can peruse through and learn through different topics. If you're not already following me on my social media channels, either on Facebook or on Instagram, so facebook.com/tripleplaydoc, or on Instagram, instagram.com/tripleplaydoc. On Instagram, I do a question and answer session every single week. I post up the question box on Monday. You can ask a question, and then if I can get to your question, because I get thousands of questions there, I will answer it on Tuesday afternoon. So I post the question box on Monday afternoon. I answer it on Tuesday afternoon, and we have a great time. People learn a lot. I learn a lot, and it's a fun way to get involved there. So follow me on those. Like I said, if this is your first time listening to the Triple Play Performance Podcast, consider subscribing. And we release an episode every single week, and you'll be able to get it delivered to your favorite podcast player. Hey, really quick, the next episode, just to give you guys a heads up, we are going to be discussing, discussing. I can't even speak right now. We're going to be discussing the top 10 products that I recommend. A lot of you guys have been asking me about this. You guys want to know, what are the top 10 products that I personally use and that I recommend? So stay tuned to the next episode. So again, this is Dr. Mike from the Triple Play Performance Podcast, wishing you a fond farewell to the next time we meet. Be well and aloha. Hey, if you've enjoyed this podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Connect with me on Instagram at tripleplaydoc. Stay tuned for more episodes. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the entire world. Till the next episode, be well and